Welcome to our UI intelligence session. UI intelligence, just to sum it up, AI-powered data entry diagnostics. When you think about diagnostics, you may think about going to the auto mechanic or to the doctor. You know you have some challenges or some problems, but you don't know what they are. You want them to really dig deep and explore what those might be and come back to you with answers. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But first, quickly, an agenda. We've got data entry. That's what we're talking about up front, the hidden problems that are there, how UI intelligence can help, how you can get started, how you can take action on that. We'll do a quick summary and we'll have time for Q&A. We'll also have time for Q&A throughout. We'll give a demo. We'll have some polls. We'd love to learn from you all. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So here's an idea I want to take a minute to let soak in. So at WalkMe, we live and breathe SaaS, software as a service. That's what we help our customers drive adoption for, the explosion of software. When we've looked at all of the platforms that we support, all of our customers are deploying WalkMe on, we're seeing that over 80% of these platforms are really about forms. So think about it from day one, when you're even just trying to get a job with a company, you're filling out forms related to your qualifications, your resume, et cetera. You onboard with a company, you've got forms to help you get up in the systems and begin your employee journey. As you begin to take on your job, you've got forms to enter critical data. And this is really important. These forms might be frustrating, they're time consuming, they're not always designed in the best way, but these forms are the mechanism for capturing really important data for the company so that leadership and others anywhere throughout the company can have access to data to help drive strategic decisions. That's why these forms are important. That's why it's such a big part of our tech stack. Now, this drives certain outcomes for businesses. Just a quick review of some stats that we've learned from industry experts and also our own data. So this number caught me by surprise, but 76% of all workers say that they're spending up to 3 hours a day on data entry. So a lot of people, a lot of time. When we've looked at data about forms within common CRM systems where we're deployed and our own usage, we're seeing that on these top 4 forms, over 27 errors. That's on aggregate across all users. It's the type of data we're looking at with UI intelligence. We'll go deeper into that. Why does that matter? Almost half of companies are saying that 10% of revenue they're losing because of CRM data quality issues. So we're talking about CRM because that's one of the critical business platforms where WalkMe is most relevant, but also which is tied to growth and revenue. So what are the problems that we're seeing with data entry? This is what we're hearing. Inaccurate reports are coming out. Maybe it's inaccurate, maybe it's incomplete. People are rushing through. You want to gather standardized data, but it's completely unstandardized. You are expecting rich qualitative input, but it's breezed through, or you have big gaps in data for various reasons, including frustration or friction. Employees are trying to get through something quickly. They're spending, like I said, up to 3 hours a day doing this. Sometimes it's the form design, it's confusing. You don't really understand what you're meant to do, what's required, what formats to put things in. And it's very difficult to get visibility into that without a really, really heavy lift. So you're not seeing really how this efficiency is playing out or how that those data challenges are impacting the business. So I want to take a moment just to let that sink in. This is what we're seeing, but I'd also like to go ahead and Aaron, if you could launch the first poll, I'd love to hear what resonates the most with you and what you see.
All right, thank you. You should see a poll up on your screen. We are seeing responses come in. We'll share those results in just a second. All righty, here come the responses.
All right, so I'm seeing 50% are resonating with the frustrated employees and lengthy processes. That totally makes sense because the audience, I know people here really care about helping with employee experience and efficiency, but I'm sure you're also used to going through those processes yourself. And then fairly, excuse me, fairly even on the accurate data and the limited visibility. So these are three areas where we really want to help. So thank you for the engagement there. Really appreciate that. Helps us understand our audience better as well. All right. So how could you address this? There's one way that you could go about it, which would be to imagine you've got someone, a team of people, a whole company of people to stand side by side with your employees and look at every single form that they're going through, each individual action that they're taking en masse for all users every single time they're doing that. And you could think about, wow, think about all of the insights that you could get from that. You really understand their behaviors and the nuances of how people think and where they're finding their issues and what is driving such potential difficulties. Why is data lacking? But obviously, this is a unimaginably impossible idea, but the truly probably the most aspirational, the best way that you could possibly learn all these insights. This is exactly what UI intelligence can do for you. So user interface, that's what we mean by UI. UI intelligence is powered by algorithms, machine learning algorithms that learn the user interfaces of the forms in your systems. It's looking at data about how people are interacting. So it's not the data that people are putting in. We're not looking at that, not concerned about that, but gathering data about those interactions with the various elements of the form, which we've gained an understanding of in the background, taking that data and then presenting it in metrics that we see to be very relevant for identifying opportunities where you can improve. And this is all done in very, very low effort. We'll talk about exactly how to get started with this. Running in the background, out of the box for the systems that are supported, it just works. And it gives you back that same sense of being able to really develop empathy and deep understanding for everything that's happening with data entry. So zooming in for a second, I shouldn't say everything because it's supported on specific, really, really important platforms today. Starting with CRM, this was where we laid the foundation for UI intelligence. Salesforce Lightning, Microsoft Dynamics are the supported CRMs. What this enables organizations to do is focus their customer-facing teams on revenue generating activities and strategies. Having the data at your fingertips through improving the means of getting the data input, being able to develop those strategies, but also for those people that are responsible for filling out CPQs or going through customer cases, driving through the whole opportunity stage process, et cetera, to do that in a more efficient way when you're able to take action to improve those processes based on the data that you're seeing. Obviously, really important for driving growth and success of the business. Now, the flip side of the coin, when you're looking across your whole organization, is IT and HR data. So we're focused today on ServiceNow and SAP SuccessFactors for IT service and human capital management, the processes behind that, so that your employee-facing teams like IT and HR can focus on their employee experience strategies. Those employees that they're serving are more efficient, less likely to be submitting tickets. Why did this go wrong? I'm just trying to do this simple thing. Because again, you're getting the data directly in aggregate from these UI intelligence algorithms that can tell you how to fix problems before they become problems for your business owners in IT and HR and CRM. Very specifically, you'll start to see metrics like time to completion, how much they're spending on specific fields, where they're encountering errors and how frequently, when they're just frankly giving up, right? You've got objectives with capturing data, and if people are abandoning, having errors with submissions, et cetera, many different reasons these processes could be failing. These are the type of metrics that we're going to talk about here in a moment. And ultimately, going back to this idea of diagnostics, using AI to diagnose these inefficiencies so that you can take action with WalkMe and how you're deployed, thinking about ways that you can use WalkMe experiences within those forms, or even we're hearing with customers that are working with the administrators and developers on these applications to take action in how the forms are actually designed and deployed so that you can get that accurate data, improve those completion rates, increase that volume of data, and also improve that efficiency for your employees. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to help you do there. What we're seeing from our own data and looking at aggregate about what UI is collecting across deployments, 70% of fields in new lead forms are going unused. So think about that. More than 2/3 are just wasted opportunity, but also potential sources of confusion. We've seen that 10% of people completely gave up on filling a new contact form. So out of every potential, only 9 out of 10 potential new contacts are getting into CRM system. We're seeing over a minute spent on a single field in new opportunities. And in those same forms, almost 50%, 43% of submissions have errors in the process of creating those. So not insignificant, these are very salient points. This is why we're seeing the demand and the need to be able to identify this without that heavy lift, without having to do those calls with the people, deploy surveys, go through training after training, and all of those actions that you might be taking today in order to understand data entry challenges, get to the root so you can solve them. So I want to go into our second poll, and then we're going to dive into the product. And Aaron, if you would launch that, I'd love to learn how you're finding out your data entry challenges today.
Yeah, you should see poll number 2 up on your screen at this point. All right, excellent. We're seeing some responses come in. give it just another minute or so here. Stephanie, great comment in the chat. She says, I thought process was an issue until I realized how bad the data was that affected integrations, pipelines, and forecasts.
I need to use that as a quote. That's great. Thank you.
All right, we've got most people have responded, so I'll end the poll and share the results.
Thank you. Yeah, so really interesting. And this again kind of reinforces the heavy lift that goes into understanding these challenges. So over 50% are going that traditional route of user feedback. So obviously the qualitative understanding, you can't replace hearing the voice of the employee directly, but that takes a lot of time and effort and planning to do that effectively. Same thing with support ticket analysis. I mean, who wakes up in the morning and decides that that's what they want to do? Apologies if that's you, definitely not me. But then data from the tool, surprisingly, it is not up there. And I know that SaaS systems don't always offer a lot of really actionable data beyond stuff like usage, not going into the level that WalkMe can. So I hope after this call, if I were to do the same poll, that we'll be able to see that we've added additional value with WalkMe data now that you're aware that we've got this capability. All right, so I just realized I can pop that up on the screen. All right, let's dive into the fun stuff. Oh, I've got some funny. There we go. We are going to show you now how you can go ahead and start your trial, talk about how UI intelligence runs in the background, etc., how that's going to work. Then you'll be able to identify areas with the most impact and drill down into forms and friction. I'm going to hand it over to Moran, the product manager for UI intelligence, and share a link in the chat so that you can also, if you want to follow along and have one of the supported platforms, you can get started during the call. I also want to just invite you, as you're following along, think about how you might put this data to use inside your organization. And if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A, and we'll take a pause after the demonstration to address some of those questions. So, Moran, over to you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so let me share my screen real quick. Okay, hi everybody. So let me just get this out of the way. How are you starting with the trial? So first thing first, it's a free trial, very exciting. You get the product for 60 days free. All you have to do is basically enter the console view. We drop the links in the chat. You can access them at any time. What you should do is just hit start my free trial, and then we start collecting the data for you. Really no brainer here. However, if you for some reason not seeing this page, what you have to do is click here, go through this drop down, select one of the supported platforms, and then you should be able to just start your trial. It's as simple as that. On one note, while we're selecting, when the trial is started and we're starting collecting the data, it should take from a couple of days to maybe a couple of weeks, depending on the traffic. What's happening really in the background is the fact that the machine learning is running and we're analyzing all the data that is being collected, just like a human would do. And then once we're good to go, we're really coming with some awesome insights in the dashboard that I will share with you shortly. So it should take some time, but If you're having any concerns, you can always reach us. So I'm sharing my dashboard view. Just a second. Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
We're still seeing the startup trial.
Yeah, let me just do this real quick. Okay, there we go. You guys should see my dashboard view right now.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So it's been a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on the traffic. And what we're seeing here is this amazing dashboard view, right? A side note, all the data that you're seeing, it's this actual data we're collecting for WalkMe. No worries about any privacy issues here. And what we're seeing here is my data for Salesforce Lighting that we've been collecting, right? So this is a highlight view for the dashboard. And like I said, we actually want to understand what's the value, where's the friction, what actually happened in the app itself without having to work too hard, right? UI does it for you. So we're seeing here the highlight metrics, some given volumes as far as how many users interacted in the system within the last 30 days, how many views been counted, arrows, and the total time spent in total within the last 30 days. Now, mind you, we have the date picker here, which is really awesome because you can aggregate the data at any point. You just go here and the data will change accordingly, according to the time slot that you're choosing. At default, it would be last 30 days. And you can really use this tool to compare before and after. So if you implement any solution or change according to the insights you received, you can really take this use and see how the change has affected the metrics. Right, so here we're seeing some of the most interesting forms selected for us. We're seeing the most arrows. We're seeing the forms with the most arrows, forms with lowest completion rate, and most time spent in total on the forms, right? So I'm getting some idea of what pinpoints I want to start with to begin with, which is great on its own. And then down here, we're seeing all of the rest of the forms that have been collected for us throughout the sessions, through the activities. Sorry for that. So what we're seeing here, we're seeing the forms with the labels. We're seeing, and we can sort according to popularity, completion, summation arrows, the field arrows, and the time spent. It's really up to you how you want to take it and to approach. If you want to start with, like what's most interesting to you, like the most popular form versus some with the most arrows, or a cut of both. For me, it's really up to productivity, right? So I want to tackle at first the most arrow ones, and I'm checking out and I'm saying, okay, so new resource request is also appearing somewhere down here. So it's a pretty safe choice to say it's a pretty popular form, second, but it also has the most arrows. So I probably want to see what's happening there to, like we mentioned, we want to enable users to reduce frictions and frustration within their process. Right, so now we're pinpointing an actual form and we're actually driving into the form view. So very interesting and very exciting. What you're seeing is actual view of what the form would look like in Salesforce. Mind you, this is completely PI safe. We're not gathering any personal information at any time. So even here, you can see that due to privacy, some of the items might be changed accordingly. And, even the name, the title of the form has changed a bit. But it's a pretty good visualization of what the forms looks like. And what we're seeing, it's like a heat map, right? We're actually seeing a layer of insights and metrics on top of the form itself. And it gives you a better understanding of like where to start the process and where users are in connecting with different frictions and frustrations, or how the process and the user behaving with this specific form. So drilling into the form view, we have two insights. We have this area of main highlight insights where I personally like to begin with. I can see some highlight like as far as popularity and then completion rate, and we'll dive into this in a sec. And then here we're seeing a list of metrics, clicks, arrows, and time spent. And those are layers like for different insights from data that are being collected, which are not necessarily relevant to each other, but it really gives you better understanding according to the user behavior. So what we're seeing here, we have a pretty popular form. If you guys remember, that was the second from the list. And then the completion rate is, it's not as high as I would expect, right? Like I would hope for it to be as high as possible. So the lower the number is, that means there's more friction or frustration with employees and something's happening and not enabling them to complete it correctly. And then coming down here, and I'm like, okay, so we have completion with arrows. So 17% of the interaction with this form is interacted with some arrows at some point. So that's crazy on its own, right? It's a pretty popular form. My users should be able to go to this form on a daily basis or as often as they need. And they're still interacting with pretty high number of arrows. So this number, we wish for it to be as low as possible. And then we're looking at how many fields are been encountering with this form only. So we're taking a look at the form, and it's not a that lengthy form, but it still has a pretty high counting of arrows. So we can check out what's happening there soon. I'm even getting an idea of how many unused fields, which is great on its own, because maybe for the longer, the lengthy forms, or, I have too many unused fields, I can, remove them, I can hide them. I don't want to have any, a wasted time for users to go through and understand and really try to understand what they have to fill or whatnot. And then finally, I'm having summary of like how much time was spent. So look at the time spent for the user's average time to complete versus average time to complete with arrows. So I'm having 44 seconds on top of the completion time wasted every time in order to get it right once the user's encountered it with arrows. So that's crazy on its own, and that's only for the last 30 days. And finally, another interesting point is how much time was being wasted on cancellation only. So that means I had users entering this form, checking it out, trying to figure out if this is the form they need, or maybe they're not sure what to do, and then dropped it. So again, this is how much time, and then you can go back and understand that users maybe are not too aware of what's happening or what they need to do with this form alone, and we can make sure to fix that. So going back to the insights here, we're seeing the interaction on the layer, the heat map, like I mentioned. We have the scale here, which is pretty helpful. So I'm seeing low interactions here with the clicks, and then here I'm having a lot more interactions. So maybe I had this field interacted over and over. Maybe the users changed their mind, or they had to go back and they weren't sure and they had to fix it for whatever reason. And this is also another area that had a lot of interaction as well. And then here I have some fields that have lower interaction, but it also makes sense because those are not mandatory fields. So the interaction is lower, but maybe I want them to be mandatory. I'm saying there isn't enough interaction, or maybe for data integrity, I want some of the fields to be filled, and I'm saying that users aren't filling them. So just on top of that, I can say, okay, I can enablement some requirements, or had some walkthrough smart tips in order to make sure the users know what I'm expecting them to do. So this is for the clicks. Now going into arrows, right? If you remember, we picked this form originally because it had the most arrows on it. So I'm checking out the scale here, and red means the higher rate of arrows. So I'm already seeing just on top of that, the two fields that has the most interaction with arrows. So, and I'm actually getting the feedback of what the arrow is. This is the arrow that was implemented within Salesforce. It's not our arrows. So let's check it. There you go. So there's an example of a field that had two types of arrows. So one type of arrow was users were not completing the field, although it's a mandatory. But the second type of arrow was that the users had misentered the date format. So that's pretty neat. So I can also understand what type of arrows the users are interacting with, and I can fix that as well using WalkMe deploys at any time. And for the customer time zone, okay, so most users just miss that altogether. So maybe I can do an autocomplete to save time as well. Maybe I can make sure there is a shadow or something to make sure they're not forgetting this field. Right, so if you remember completion with arrow, sometime at this point, the user attempted to click save, and then they had an error with one of the fields. So that's more time wasted as far as productivity. I want to improve that. And here we're seeing even in the area of task description, this is also a mandatory field, and some of the users miss on that. So we can take care of that just by looking at the form and the insights. And finally, we're going into the time spent. And this is interesting because it really depends on the approach of how and what you're trying to get out of the field as far as data integrity and the user's behavior, right? So some fields you're expecting the users to take as little time as possible and just to hit it and maybe even do the autocomplete so they don't waste any time. But sometimes you probably want to have people invest in the answer. And like, for example, if you want the task description to be as detailed as possible, I'm seeing 8 seconds to completion time. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe I want the users to spend more time. Maybe they should take the time and really fill in and take the description. Maybe we can use like an autocomplete or auto template and kind of have them use that in order for them to really be as elaborate as possible on the answer. And I can really take this on as much as I need to understand the user behavior well. And it's all about taking a look at, the highlight of the insights and then drilling down to pinpoint where you want to tackle and what you want to target as far as the user's behavior. So we can efficiency, productivity, and really see the friction point just as easily by taking an initial first look at the heat map and then really going and diving into the data. So yeah, this is UII, very exciting. And back to you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks so much, Moran. There's so much to dive in there, and I just want to mention again. So she showed that when you're on one of the supported platforms, which is Salesforce, Dynamics, ServiceNow, SuccessFactors, you'll see that start a trial option. If you're in UII and you're not defaulted to one of those, you won't see that, but just know that you can go up. There's a drop down, select the right system, and you can get started. And I love the fact that it just kind of goes and it does this analysis and it really brings that to you. So it's really low touch. I want to call out a couple things from the Q&A and spend a little bit of time there. First, great question from Lizzie about new updates to these products, specifically the winter update for Salesforce. So yeah, one of the things that R&D was most excited about in applying machine learning is that since SaaS is constantly changing, we can apply machine learning to continuously keep up with that, make sense of what those changes are, just like a human would be able to look at version A, version B, understand what's changed, and make a mental map for that. So, but as Adam, our fantastic sales engineer that's also on the call, pointed out, that if for some reason changes are of a nature that we can't follow along, that we're here to support with that as well. So thanks, Lizzie, for that question. Also, there's a couple questions about what's coming down the pipe, so roadmap, but also I'd love to, so Moran, if you could share a little bit about what's on the near-term roadmap, but also we've got questions from Brenda and Heather about what's the best way, I'm summing it up as what's the best way that customers could provide input on future platforms that we could support.
Okay, so great question. We're always looking to support more platforms. If you have any platforms in mind, you can always contact us directly or contact your sales rep, and we can take this on a personal thread and really look into it. As far as coming soon down the roadmap. So very exciting to have the option to filter by segmentation. This ability would enable you to really drive to and analyze the before and after and really look into specifics within the data that's been analyzed. The ability to have tags and of course trends, those would really pop right there and would show you where you should take action to, or at least advise you as far as recommendations that we're looking at. So very excited, and all of this is coming soon.
Thanks so much. I also wanted to introduce, we've got the head of R&D for UI Intelligence on, Adam Rosenthal. Adam, what's a question that you think the audience would like to hear today?
Hi, everybody. So I got a question that we get a lot. Is one of them is how exactly is the data being collected? So a lot of people assume that we connect to, for example, to Salesforce integrations, but actually the magic is that we use deep UI capabilities of a graphical user interface understanding to evaluate and understand seamlessly in our runtime that there is actually a form being interacted with. So our algorithm identifies that the user is currently seeing and interacting with a form, and our system goes into action and collects the structure and the things it needs in order to down the road perform the analysis and gather the data. And it's important to verify that no PII is being collected. We are only collecting like the structure of the form, what Moran showed you before, right? We are not collecting the input that the users are entering, as it might have PII in it. So it's really PII safe. And we are only, and what I want to emphasize is that the usage and what is being collected is only triggered by our capability to understand the graphical user interface. So actually all of the identification of when there is a form on the presented on the page and is the browser on the page is only by using our DPI graphical user interface understanding capabilities. So that's one thing. Eric, any other things you want me to?
Well, I'd love to also hear from Adam McGuire as well. What's top of mind for you based on customer questions?
Yeah, sometimes a lot of the times I'll hear, what's kind of the main difference between, DXA, the digital experience analytics, and UII here. And the main thing to kind of take away from this is that, with DXA, we're essentially kind of tracking business processes. We're tracking those funnels so we can understand, what are the abandonment rates and where are they abandoning in the process at, what's taking them a long time to complete, things like that. With UII, it's more or less diving into the form itself and analyzing, essentially how is the user interacting with the form, the fields that they're interacting with, where are they seeing the most errors? And so that's one of the questions that I get a lot of the times is, what's the difference between the insights that we're capturing today, with DXA as compared to UII? And UII just allows you to go even, deeper into understanding what a user's journey really looks like and actually look at and see visually, what their experience portrays, from a forms perspective on the different fields they're interacting with, where they're seeing the most errors, where they're spending time on, things like that. So that's a question I get a lot of the times is, what's the main difference between DXA and UII, when they're seeing UII for the first time.
Great, thank you. Couple others coming in through the Q&A. So Kim Bo asking about exportable, being able to export the data. What are our future plans for that, Moran, if we have them?
It's actually, we just recently came out with it, so it should be general availability very soon. Yeah.
The timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We understand that people like to take data out of WalkMe and put them into other systems. So when that's available, Kim, we'd love to hear feedback from you on how that works from you. Absolutely. And then Adam Rosenthal, I'll pass this one over to you. Jeff Mayhew asked the question, does it matter whether WalkMe is deployed via snippet or extension?
So it doesn't matter. UII, the system is injected by WalkMe if it's by a snippet or extension. And also for Dynamics, we have a package in the Dynamics store that UII can also work without having a WalkMe extension.
Great, thank you. All right, so really appreciate the dialogue, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can take action through WalkMe experiences on this type of data, and you'll be able to reference that in the slides afterwards as well. But I want to hear also from you how you think your business would act on this type of data. So, Aaron, if you could launch the last poll, what would you most likely do with this data?
So you should see that up on your screen. Thank you everyone for the awesome questions. If any additional questions come to mind, please go ahead and throw those out there. The team is here to answer those today. Just a few more responses we're waiting for. All right. Here we go.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Well, I'm excited to see that nobody said that they're going to go develop more training and documentation, because that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. And a bias towards working with the WalkMe content makes sense. It's probably much easier than going into the system itself and using other resources to redesign that. But we do hear from customers that's a completely valid way to do it. And I think ultimately, if you have a good team structure, doing both can be really valuable too. And the great thing about UI intelligence is whether you're changing WalkMe content or doing redesign actually in the app, let it run in the background again, and look at the difference, right? Look at different date ranges, you can see the impact of your work on the problem that you identified. And what a great story too. You take that back to leadership and say, hey, look, we proactively identified a problem before it became a problem, and we solved it, and we've driven these improvements in business. So on that note, I'm going to go back and just share a couple of examples of what you might see and things that you can do. So let me go back to sharing my screen. We're close to the top of the hour, so I'll just kind of give some examples, and then you'll have reference to this that you can use as you go along. So here's an example, a new contact form. You've got users giving up. Maybe smart tips can guide through and help validate, the type of logic that they should be putting in. Submission errors. There's always the opportunity to auto-populate content so that it's meeting that standardized view that you're looking for. Empty fields, being able to use highlighters, prompts, nudges to ensure that people are giving you the data that you're looking for. New opportunities, again, completion rates, smart walkthroughs, smart tips in different combinations, different outcomes that you're looking to drive, new leads. And obviously we're focused here on CRM because that's where we started and that's where we have the most data from customers. We're excited to start to get this type of feedback from customers on the IT and HR systems that we've recently deployed on. But a lot of great ideas about how you can use WalkMe today to act on this data and actually drive those business outcomes. And this will be available after a call. So in summary, again, there's those algorithms, they're learning the UIs, collecting data about interactions, turning that into metrics, providing that out of box. Today, it's on ServiceNow, SuccessFactors, Salesforce Lightning, Microsoft Dynamics. And it's all about actionable data, business impact. We want to make it easier for you. We hope that after today's webinar, you're inspired to start a trial. Do that through the UI Intelligence tab in the console, select your supported system, and we'd love to make the offer to you because we love to hear from customers and learn from you of a hands-on analysis of your data. So contact your account team. They'll connect you with product management, Moran or others, and we can discuss what you're seeing after you've let the data run for a while, generate some ideas for addressing friction with WalkMe. And for the folks that have indicated they're interested in support for other platforms, you can go through the same motions and have dialogue about some of the use cases for those platforms and what kind of outcome we could drive for your business. So really appreciate everyone's time today. I'll stop sharing. I just want to take another look and see if there's any open questions for the group. No, it looks like we've addressed that. So Aaron, can you give them a heads up on what they're going to hear, how they're going to hear from us next?
Absolutely. So first, thank you to Eric, Moran, Adam and Adam for the talk today, the insights into these features that WalkMe has that frankly, a lot of people don't know about yet. And our goal on this webinar series is to constantly give you actionable things that you can do to level up your digital adoption game, to bring greater value to your business, to improve your career options, all of those things, whatever it is that you are looking to do with WalkMe and in the digital adoption space. We're looking for all the different ways that we can equip you. So one other thing, I've got some upcoming events to tell everyone about, some wrap-up items. While I'm doing that, one more poll for you, because we do want to make sure that these events are helpful to you. So please let us know how we're doing and what we can do to make sure that future events continue to be relevant to you. Coming up in the world of future events, we have our next WalkMe webinar on September 28th, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific. This is on Salesforce filler steps, and this is an interesting one. We just discovered some things that were going on in the update to Salesforce Lightning, and our product team got engaged and made some changes and really deployed WalkMe in an interesting way that helped a lot of customers out before they even knew they were going to need help. So we're going to be sharing that story and talking about how these principles are things that you can use in your own circumstances. So don't miss that. That's September 28th. We also have our monthly Welcome to WalkMe webinar. If you or somebody you know is still new to WalkMe or just getting started, this gives you info on teams and the resources that are available to you for your success. And then the DAP Pro Show, which is a brand new event series that we've launched just this month, actually. It's kind of our Meet the Expert series. And next time, October 5th, we're talking about internal advocacy and how you can become a DAP champion and drive change, help your company fully embrace digital adoption. So those are all the things that are coming up next time. All right, I will stop sharing. And as far as wrap-ups, we did record the webinar today. We will be providing that for you via email. You should get that tomorrow. We'll also include some of the takeaways from today's talk about how you can get started with UI intelligence and some of those things, some other resources that you can access. And quick preview coming up September 18th, the WalkMe World community is getting a brand new look on a brand new platform and lots of new cool features coming along with that, including an archive of all of these event recordings you'll be able to access on demand, including access to the questions and the answers for all of these events. So going all the way back to when we first started these various series, all of that will be available to you coming very soon on the brand new WalkMe World community. I think that's it for today. Does anybody have anything else? Did I miss anything? Anybody want to chime back in?
Just a big thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. We will see you next time. You know where to find us. And as you exit the event, there'll be additional poll questions for you if you want to let us know what other topics you would be interested in hearing about in the future. That is completely optional, but we appreciate all your feedback and your time with us today. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.